think's going to happen if Trump gets into office then?
What do I think's going to happen if Trump gets
to the market, real estate market?
It's hard to say, dude, because it's all on policy, right? So what policies get put in place, how the markets react. It's definitely you don't know.
And that's the biggest thing too, is we have no idea really what's going to happen until someone gets put in the office, right? Sure. I mean, statistically going back last 10, 20 years, whatever it's been with people getting into office, I mean, the market's only gone down, 2 times in the last 10 years or something like that, you know?
Yeah, I think with right now, from October to November, if I were buying, I'd probably potentially, if it made sense, jump in. Because once it settles, again, the crystal balls, just from my experience, because I've been doing it 22 years, right? So in the 22 years that I've been doing so, each cycle kind of things start happening after election, after we know who's in there. So yeah, with the election process, right, over the last 30 years, there's been 4 instances where real estate declined, right? So 2021-ish, right? But it was all stuff that wasn't part of the election.
No.
Right?
There's external factors that are actually contributing to the market being down rather than the actual election itself.
Yeah, 2020.
Right.
It was a pandemic, and it literally went down, then shot up. That was crazy. Got a buyer into contract. They had a home to sell, and we sold their house without actually even seeing either properties prior to being offer accepted.
Really?
Yeah.
I wasn't here during that time.
Yeah,
So
that was crazy.
I haven't even heard that story before.
Yeah, it was virtual showings.
Oh, that's right, because you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it was COVID,
oh,
right?
Shoot.
So then prior to that was 2021. Then it was prior to that, there was just the crisis. I mean, that was 2008, right?
Right. That wasn't again due to election or anything like that, right? It was like
no, the market got smoked. And then also you had the tech bubble in there, right? And then like you go all the way back to 1990. That was the recessionary period. So all in all, those are really the 4 times that real estate after an election, it all has to do with more of broader things happening. The economy, natural disaster, I guess, if you'd call it, right? Things like that. So usually, based on stats, we've seen typically the real estate market continues to go up. Right.
And over those last 30 years, I mean, we're still seeing appreciation on average throughout the entire United States at 4% or higher, right? Here in the Sacramento area.
It's probably higher.
Right, exactly. So here in the Sacramento area, or El Dorado Hills, Placer, whatever, Tri-County area, we're seeing even higher appreciation than the national average, right?
100%.
So it's like real estate's only gone down 4 times in the last 30 years after an election due to external factors, but then at the same time, real estate's still appreciating, right?
It's always going to.
So do you think it's still a decent time to buy right now?
I think there's opportunity because I think there's a lot of people that are holding, kind of sitting.
Right.
And who knows what happens, but when this thing shakes out, I think there will be more activity happening. Again, I'm not sure. We've seen interest rates come down like almost 2% since the height earlier this year.
Right, which is crazy.
Right, and it's increased a little bit. I feel like our market's just kind of in a weird holding spot right now, and I feel that once this whole election piece potentially comes out, it's gonna do. But even in this market, you have the property, if it's well positioned to the market, if it's a cool property, it's a good property in good condition.
Right,
they're still selling. You had one just win $100,000 over.
$100,000 over asking the first weekend. At over $1 million.
And then I had one that we got multiple offers in on a Folsom property, went over asking, not 100 grand, but it went over. But you know, it's so
you're not there yet, pal.
Yeah. Right. I'm not there. Someday, Robert. Someday.
One day, Jake.
One day
I'll get on my level.
Yeah, 100%. So, what? I got something for you. What do you think the biggest, just in general, working with people who are buying houses? What's the biggest misconception you think out there?
Biggest misconception? Like, do you mean like of
people who think, hey, I'm going to buy a house, but I can't because of this?
20% down. Everybody thinks that they have to put 20% down to purchase a house. I mean, obviously, if you put 20% down on a conventional loan and everything like that, you're going to have no private mortgage insurance. Right? So that's a plus. But at the same time, it's like I talk with first-time buyers all the time, and they're like, yeah, I'm still saving for my 20% down. I'm like, well, did you guys know there's different options to where you can put as little as 3% down if your credit score is money?
Yeah.
You know, it's like a lot of people just don't know there's different options out there rather than just probably 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that was what everyone did, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like now, times have changed, there's different options.
And even if you have the 20, sometimes if you look at your options, like let's say for instance, you have 20% down and you put 10% instead of the 20, like the mortgage insurance is based off of credit. It's based off of your loan to value, how much you're borrowing versus the value of the house.
Right.
And you could, let's say on a $500,000 loan, 20% down is 100 grand, right? Whereas you could say, you know what, I'm only going to do 90, just keep 50 in your bank, and the cost on that is I've seen it $120 a month. Does it make
not that significant of a difference?
Well, if you look at it from a perspective of, can you get a better ROI on that 50 than paying 120? Chances are you can, right? Because $120, if you look at it, it's not that much. Yeah, it just depends on where you are and what makes sense for you, right?
Yeah, you just have to stop drinking coffee every day from Starbucks, you know.
I guess.
And there you go in 1 month.
Actually, it would be.
I know. Coffee now is like what? How much do you pay for coffee every day, Jake?
I don't. I got the espresso.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
About time.
I just gotta. Well, no, I've had it. I've tried to cut down that coffee consumption.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the same time too, the point I was getting at is like if you have that extra $50,000 in the bank, where you only put $50,000 down instead of that full $100,000, right? I mean, obviously the payment's going to change a little bit, but as long as it still makes financial sense for you to take on that monthly payment, I mean, you'd have 50 grand in the bank still to now upgrade that home if you wanted to. You can put new flooring in, you can do your kitchen, you can do so many more upgrades to the home that it's eventually, if you end up selling at some point in the future, you know, that return on investment will come back.
You could buy a classic car.
You can go buy a Porsche.
Or a Camaro, Super Sport.
There you go.
Yeah. You'd be cruising and have a house.
There you go. I like it.
We're not financial
advisors
or advisors for sure. Don't listen to us. That might be a better option than buying a classic car. Why I'm part of the Broken Motor Car Club. But
yeah. Me too.
What about sellers? What are you thinking as far as sellers go? What?
You know, it's interesting right now. I mean, I'm talking to a lot of people that say they would like to move at some point in the future. I mean, everyone's got the interest rates. They refinanced when rates were at 3%, 2.5%. You know, so I've talked to a lot of sellers right now that are saying, well, it's like we got the golden handcuffs. You know? It's like we can't move because if we wanted to, our monthly payment's going to be double what we have.
Sometimes it's tough.
I talked to a guy yesterday who has a home in Granite Bay, bought it for like $1.1 million, and his monthly payment is like $2,500 a month, which is ridiculous for over $1 million property in Granite Bay. He goes, I'd love to sell this thing and move, but why would I?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think the real estate market and home ownership's always been just if it makes financial sense for you
100%.
and improves your living situation, then roll with it. But at some point too, it's, you know, we got put in put in a market which was kind of a false market, like a once. I don't know if I'll see it again. That rate,
yeah.
I don't think I will. You, on the other hand,
My kids maybe, but
well, you're young. You're young. I've got 20-something years on you. So, what? Ask me a question.
What do you think is the best opportunity right now when it comes to the market in terms of buying? Like how can a buyer take advantage of this market the most right now?
It's a good question. I would think especially if I was buying, right? So inventory has gone up. I just talked about it. I think we're mid-2s in Sacramento, and for the last few years.
For months of inventory.
Yeah, months of inventory, right?
Right.
Okay, we use months of inventory as a measure to determine the hot or the heat of the market, right?
Right.
Lower it is, less homes available, more people competing.
Right.
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 So
supply and demand.
Supply and demand, basically. Yep. So there's higher supply right now than there has been for a while. If I was a buyer, I would look for homes that have been on the market for 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, right?
Yeah.
Because if you look at sales, and this has been consistent since I've been in the business, if you look at sales and you look at homes that started up really high, they always sell for more, or for less than had they just priced it to market. Like people are trying to, I hear a lot too of, from sellers is, well, we want to leave room for negotiations.
Right.
Well, there's nothing to negotiate if you don't get an offer, right?
I hear that all the time too.
Right?
Yeah.
So
totally.
Price it to market, because then typically once it hits that 45, 60-day mark, it starts getting what we call stale. And people you get investors coming out saying, hey, we'll give you this, and people start lowballing your thing. So that's what I would do if I was a buyer, is try and find those homes that are 30, 60, 90 days on market.
Right.
And it's probably where you'll probably get lower price. You can ask the seller for concessions because they want to sell, especially if it's vacant, right? Because then you're paying money that you don't want to pay unless they own it free and clear.
Totally.
And then just better terms. So that would be one. I would also look for sellers who maybe have seller financing or maybe assumable loans.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those popping up.
And
off markets too.
Yeah, off markets.
Can't forget about the off markets. That just popped in my head.
Yeah.
Because we even have a couple right now that are some really good opportunities.
Yeah, 100,000 under market value. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that's not just saying like the seller just like willing to take a cut on the price or anything like that. But the home needs some work.
Right.
And it's like once you
equity.
Once you end up putting that work, live in it, and then for the next couple of years, you're gaining tons of equity there too. So that's a really good option for some buyers, is making
Fixers.
sure find some fixers or find some off market opportunities that
find the ones that
agent has. So
find the ones that are financeable, so that you could
totally
keep some money in the bank.
100%. And that's part two, right? Is the financing. I just helped a buyer over here in the Fair Oaks area. They're with a lender who does a fair amount of business, and then we leveraged our mortgage company that we now own to get them, close to $8,000 over the course of the first year, lower than the other agent had, or the other lender had. So we saved them $8,000, which is crazy.
Huge.
So it's like who you work with matters there too.
Yeah.
Great question for you.
Yep.
In terms of selling a property right now, say someone wants to make a move, they want to sell their home, and they're just worried about the holidays coming up. Thanksgiving's right around the corner, Christmas is coming up. We hopefully should see some rain here and getting a little bit colder.
I know, I'm tired.
At some point, man.
I'm tired of the heat, buddy. I'm tired.
But like in that aspect, it's like when people say they want to sell, but just not this time, just due to holidays and everything like that. What's your protocol on that one?
It's a good question, and I think it really depends on the person, right? Like, do they need to move, right?
Going back to their motivation.
Well, not necessarily motivation, but I always judge a market by my competition.
Right.
So if I'm listing a house am I going to have an increased amount of competition, right? Because then I'm competing against other houses. Or how's my competition look right now, right? So if I'm in an area, and it's always going to be specific, so, Folsom versus Granite Bay, Fair Oaks, wherever, if there's houses that aren't necessarily like mine or comparable, and I'm going to be one of the only houses on the market, then I'll list it when that time is, winter, spring, whatever, right?
It doesn't matter the season is what you're saying.
I mean, as far as seasonality goes, I mean, spring, it is a busier time of the real estate market. It's been traditionally, it always has been. And also at the same time, again, I look at it from a competition. Who am I competing against?
Right. Totally.
And interest rates and what's that look like? So if it makes sense, and it makes sense for me as a seller to put the house on the market based on what it looks like I'm gonna sell it for, and here's what's happened is people got very used to 2020, 2021, beginning of 2022, where you could put your house on the market and you're getting tons of offers. That's not commonplace. That hasn't been. I started in 02, right? 04, 05 was a hot market. Through 06, beginning of 07, then the crash, right?
Right.
Then it got back to a normal market. But that 2020, 2021 wasn't a normal market. So if you're selling a house, you can't expect the results to be from over there. Normal markets, I mean, depends on what the stats are saying. They're 30 days on market, 45 days on market. And so if the price is what you're looking for, great. List the house if there's not that much competition. I always look at competition.
Right. Gotcha.
Long-winded. But
so again, it's basically boiling down to supply and demand, right?
100%.
I mean, if there's not a lot of properties that are on the market that are on the same caliber of property that you have a better chance as far as getting maybe some multiple offers and potentially going over asking.
Could potentially, yeah.
So no, I agree.
What, so far in your experience, what has been, because you're really good at getting people in the contract when competing against other buyers.
100%, yeah, absolutely.
What are some, obviously you have your secret sauce, right? And
can't just give it away, Jake.
I know, they're like in and out, giving out the
You're
recipe.
gonna put me out of business,
right?
man.
Right, the animal style recipe would be. I think it's out there, but what are some tips that or some strategies you use to help your people?
In terms of getting their offer accepted.
Yeah.
Right?
Let's say you're going up against and you call the agent and they're like, yeah, we got 3 offers. What are you gonna do?
Gosh, I mean, biggest thing for me is just constant and clear communication with the other agent.
Yeah.
Right, and
that's huge. Sorry to interrupt, but
you're good.
I get so many times have a property listed, get an offer, have no clue who it came from. Like, did they even look at the house? No phone call, no text.
Blind offer in your email, like where the hell
100%.
did this come from?
It's huge.
And that's actually what I got too a couple times on some previous listings, right?
Yeah.
Is just no communication from the agent saying, hey, we sent an offer over, no details about buyer, no details about their financing or anything like that, just, hey, here it is. And then dead, nothing. And to go along with that too is how clean the offer actually looks.
Yeah.
Right, is a huge part. That's one thing that we really do a good job on for all the buyers that we help, is making sure that the contracts that we actually put out are just spot on. Their I's are dotted, T's are crossed.
Yeah.
And it goes a long way with other agents, right? I mean, I get offers all the time that I'm like, dude, you're missing a date here, you're missing the names here.
Yeah.
So it's like, when we're putting out offers but also receiving offers too, that's a huge part of what agents are looking for, is just how clean the offer actually looks.
Yeah, those are good points. What about war stories? Like experiences as far. I'll share one of mine if you want me to share.
Go for it. You
classic.
sound like you're excited about it. Let's
I
hear
am
it.
actually excited about this. So some stories in real estate. So back in the what was it called? The bank owned, right? There's a lot of bank owned homes for sale. And the problem that we were seeing back then is you would have people come in and start squatting at the house. So there were some services that popped up where they would put temporary tenants in the house. They'd sign a contract and literally they would live in the house during your listing.
I heard about that. Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
Well, some of the big bank owned, sometimes they didn't change their listing instructions. So one time, it was a Saturday, I was fresh, I was green. You know,
Were you?
Got a client, we're out, we're excited, said vacant with lockbox. I'm like, yeah, all the pictures are vacant.
Right.
So I go in there, and I get to the door, and I get the lockbox. Lockbox is on there, access it. Mm-hmm. Open up the door. I have my client's behind me, and I open it up, and there's a big ass family in there. They were cooking breakfast, and it smelled delicious, by the way.
Right.
And they were smoking weed.
Right on.
Yeah, sounded like a party, but I was like, I was so scared. Like, could you imagine like walking in, someone just walks into your house, and my first thought is like, am I gonna get shot? Like,
no, 100%.
I'm like, hey guys, sorry, I thought your house was vacant. I apologize. I'm gonna leave. They're like, oh, okay. I locked it up and took off. That was one of my.
That's crazy.
That was one of my war stories.
I went through something similar to that. You know, it wasn't 20 years ago. You know, when you were back in the business there, or green in the business, right?
Yeah, you were like 2, 3.
That was like 1 or 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
But when we had a listing over here in the area, it was vacant too, right?
Yeah.
It's always the vacant ones.
It
And
is.
when I first got into the industry,
I think you called me on this one.
so there's two. There's
Yeah.
one when I first got in the industry and I was doing some previews for some buyers, and I just same thing, right? Thought the house was vacant. Agent confirmed it was vacant, everything like that. I show up there and there's this absolute beater in the driveway. Like, this car is falling apart. It's got stuff piled to the top of it and everything like that. I'm like, not a good sign. I probably should have walked away.
Didn't have its 60,000 mile tune-up on it?
No,
Okay.
no tune-ups, nothing like that. This thing has been like 50,000 miles past an oil change, right? But I mean, that was first red flag. I should have walked away from the very beginning. But I was like, yeah, check it out. You know, there's a little bit of curiosity that was spiked in there, and so I go open the door and everything, and this lady comes in the door, barely wearing any clothes, and a massive pit bull was just barking right there at the door. She's
Oh my gosh.
She goes, "What do you want?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Yep, thought the home was vacant. I was just doing a show and everything like that. I'll come back later. Thanks so much."
That's crazy.
She locked the door. Didn't have to lock it myself. I just put the key back in the back to the lockbox there, and I got back in my car, called the cops, and then did a lap around the block there. And when I came back, just within the last like 2 minutes when I was gone, they were out of there. So I was like, I didn't go back in there. I didn't want to see what kind of mess they made, but that was a scary one. And then the other time, we actually had a listing over here in the area. It was vacant. It actually backed up to like an like industrial or commercial,
Yep.
right? And so walked in there for an open house actually, and I mean walked in there, smelled horrible, and I looked back through the hall. I saw someone's stuff.
Oh man.
I was like,
I'm out.
Seriously. So I'm like standing there at the door. I'm like, wow, realtor.
That's
Who's
right, you
in
do that.
here? I have a gun. I'm not afraid to shoot it. I don't have my CCW yet and everything, but I was like, man, I was scared, man. And like lights were on and everything. Ended up calling the cops, and they came back over there. I was still there waiting for them.
Yeah.
And they ended up finding all kinds of goodies in that one. No person, thank God, but someone snuck in back door, a window, or something like that. And crazy.
I actually had a first in my career last year.
A first.
Huh? So I didn't do a ton of bank owns. I did a lot of short sales, which is when the seller owes more than the house is worth and they're still living there. And I did my first sheriff lockout. So.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And I needless to say, I was, because I've heard some war stories from other bank-owned. I was super excited. Mm-hmm. And
You're excited to have the cops come.
I was
yank out
excited
the
to
person?
experience it, but I was super underwhelmed. I thought, you get there, and it's bad boys, right? Like,
Guns drawn,
yeah,
like, get out of the house!
Yeah, like, that whole thing. Nothing. They just kicked him out. They said to me, I go up there, he's like, hey, you have 5 days to call Jake to schedule grabbing your stuff, leave now. And I had a locksmith with me,
right.
And we just had to change the locks. But, I mean, I guess it's good. Nothing happened. I don't want danger or anything like that, but at the same time, I thought it was gonna be exciting,
yeah.
and it was chill. So.
Have you ever had any experiences like that where it was like adrenaline was pumping and like it was a bad situation, not like a intense negotiation for like closing cost credits or something like that?
Oh,
right?
Yeah. I mean, that's just normal. But how it was, not really. It's always been. I've always had I haven't really had that before. I've had scary moments back in the Bacon days where there was a house over in Incline Village over by off 65th, and it had a basement, and the lights were out because a lot of those bank owns, they didn't keep the power on.
Right.
They make the buyer go to the power, and so I was with buyers, and it might even be the same ones that I walked in on that family.
Really?
Yeah, and all of a sudden we hear a bunch of noise in the
shoot.
basement, and there's no power. So I was 26, 27, and I was like, oh, dude, I'm gonna go down there. So I didn't have a flashlight or anything. I just turned my phone on. And I don't know if someone was down there and they hid or what, but I kind of looked around, nothing.
Dang.
And then I showed the rest of the house. That was kind of weird.
You had a flashlight on your flip phone? Did they have those?
We still had phones, dude.
I know you have phones, but you have
I think the phone, I had some way of looking at it. I mean, I don't know. I had a very little light. Let's just put it that way.
I didn't even know flip phones had or flashlights.
Yeah. That was when we looked at properties on carbon copies.
Yeah, you got them from the paper, right?
The paper. Yeah.